What's going on, everyone? We knew this week was gonna be insane, but what happened today just added even more fuel to the fire. The market technically made new all-time highs today, but traders sold hard all day long. And keep in mind, this is happening as we are entering into the biggest earnings week of the season. On top of that, we have an interest rate decision this week, and we're starting to see some of the hottest stocks in the market make some bold moves. Stick with us. We have a lot to cover today. Things are about to get exciting.
Yeah, this is the biggest week of the earnings season, and I'm really glad to see that the market made new highs today, but what was that pullback that ended up coming through there? That was pretty rough to see. There are a few things going on with Trump that could be maybe causing this pullback to come in, but, talking about the earnings just a little bit closer here, Mike, like we talked about yesterday, 38% of the S&P 500 is set to report this week. It's going to be a massive one, and whenever we look at the earnings lineup itself, there are so many crazy stocks. Tomorrow, there's a few stocks reporting that have been in the headlines a lot recently, like UNH has been in the headlines quite a bit. Of course, they've been having a lot of issues, so be ready for that report. But I mean, even SoFi, PayPal, Boeing, UPS, tomorrow's lineup in the morning is amazing, all the way down to Spotify, in my opinion. Of course, Merck and Procter & Gamble are large as well, but it's just a crazy earnings season out there, and we need to be ready for added volatility because of this, right? I think the market got a little bit fearful today, maybe ahead of some of these earnings coming up this week. I know that the market gapped up, but as that day progressed, it just got a little bit worse there with the SPY.
Yeah, and one thing looking closer at earnings is you'll notice that as the week goes on is when the bigger names report, like Apple, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and even Robinhood, and these stocks are going to have, of course, a heavy influence on, how the market moves, not only directly but indirectly with sentiment. But some of these quote unquote smaller names like SoFi before open tomorrow, and PayPal, and even Boeing and Spotify, and a handful of these other stocks will have the potential to move in a crazier way. And even ticker symbol VRT, that's been another hot stock over the past few years. So even keep a close eye on some of these stocks like SoFi, for example, because when they move, they have the ability to move in a very strong way. And as we know, earnings season makes for bigger, crazier moves, so that should be very exciting. But another thing to really keep in mind is, Tom, we have a giant event this week with the FOMC interest rate decision, and that's happening on Wednesday, right in the middle of the day.
Yeah, 2 p.m. Eastern time is when that interest rate decision will be happening. And obviously on this one, they're looking for a pause. A 97% chance is actually being priced in right now by the market of a pause at this meeting. I think that the big thing is, look, what are we going to do going forward, right? Trump is pressuring Powell very hard right now to cut these rates. And obviously Powell's been holding off for a while, and maybe Powell's doing it in a good way. Maybe it's right to hold off right now. Let me know in the comments what you think. Personally, I'm going to be glad once they finally start cutting. As of right now, they're pricing in a 61.7% chance of these cuts coming at the September 17th meeting. I think that we might end up seeing this number jump up a lot if there's some indication given by Powell that these rates will, or that these rate cuts will be coming in here. So it's going to be a very big event this week. Of course, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, everybody better be ready, because that's going to be a pretty crazy day, and we'll be covering it right here as well. So make sure you're subscribed and coming back all week long.
Definitely. And like you said, I don't think anyone's going to be too surprised if they keep rates the same, because there's a 90% chance, 97% chance of that happening. But what everyone's really going to pay attention to is what Jerome Powell says going forward. If he starts to say things where, kind of alluding to the sense where they might cut rates sooner or more intensely than expected, then traders will really jump on that. And generally that would be a bullish sign. Where if he gets a little bit more hesitant and he wants to keep rates higher for longer, that's something that investors really wouldn't like as much. So everyone's really going to be paying attention to what Powell is saying, and he will start speaking at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. So Tom, that's a big event, of course, but we have a handful of other big events throughout the week as well.
Yeah, tomorrow the JOLTS data is coming out at 10 a.m. Eastern time, 30 minutes after the market opens. I think that the jobs data could be a little bit underrated this week, so be ready for some indications there. Obviously, if the data comes in and shows that the jobs market is weakening a little bit, that would be pretty bad, I would say. Obviously, that could, though, push Powell closer to rate cuts. So, there's like a give and take with all the data points that can come out. The GDP growth rate will be coming out Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time as well. And then on Thursday, core PCE, personal income, personal spending, and Friday with the non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate and the ISM manufacturing PMI. That is quite the rundown there.
Tom, and we're just getting started. There's also like an unscheduled economic event this Friday, and that is when Trump's reciprocal tariff deadline is set to expire. So this is another thing that I think is going to be like kind of very under the radar because, of course it's not, scheduled like a normal economic event, but also there's just so much going on right now. And at the same time, we know that, tariff / trade war news moves the market quite a bit. And, if you need proof of that, look at the stock market drop from earlier this year. And quite frankly, even if you go back to, you could say the end of 2018, that was another giant year where Trump's tariff decisions definitely made for some giant moves in the stock market. So we have a loaded week all week long. As the week progresses, it's just going to get crazier and crazier. But there's honestly a lot going on in the market right now heading into these events. So looking at the market today, Tom, again, we made new all-time highs, but there was a lot of selling today.
There definitely was. I could not believe that the SPY pulled back in such a crazy way and just, with the intensity that it actually had there. We opened up this morning, we made brand new all-time highs, and of course gave it all back. There is one good thing going on right now with the SPY is that it's actually holding a good trend of higher lows. As we scroll out here on the SPY, we're on a 5-minute chart, we can see there's been this trend line going on. Of course, there's a lot of levels on the way up as well, but we're actually getting the third test of this trend line here, and so far it's holding, especially around the end of the day today. The SPY did start to bounce up off of this trend line, so if we can see this area right around the low of day today at like 635.50 continue to hold, I think that would be a great sign for the bulls, of course. But at the same time, if we start to see I would say that 635 area start to really give out, then I'm going to be worried and maybe even shift to the downside. But I've been enjoying the uptrend and the market has been very resilient, so I would not be surprised if it did continue to bounce here. But I definitely think it's smart to keep this on the radar, and if we do start to break under, like I said, like that 635.50 area, it could be pretty scary out there.
Exactly. And realistically, look at the market fell down by 0.03% from yesterday's close, or we could say from Friday's close technically. So on a close over close basis, the market didn't really drop that much. But when you look at the high point from today to the low point, it was a decent sized sell off. And I think it's very interesting that with all of these economic events going on this week, all of the earnings, the tariff deadline, and everything else, we saw selling basically all day long, and a point, you could say 7% pullback from the high point to the low point is on the larger side of an intraday pullback, especially that we've seen recently. So I don't think it's worth ignoring. Like you said, Tom, we are in this pattern of higher lows, which is definitely a good sign. But at the same time, if that gives out, that can be a little bit worrying in the sense where, if we start to see more and more people start to take profits ahead of these big economic events, which, isn't necessarily like a dumb thing to do, then that can, make for some downside volatility in the short term. And that's just something we're going to have to play and adapt to as the price action unfolds. But I think it's very smart to, not get too anchored on the bull side or the bear side right now. We know bulls are, broadly speaking, in control. We're in a very strong bull market, but at the same time, this cannot and will not last forever. And when you're heading into a week where we know we're going to see big moves, you have to, stay clear thinking and adaptable ahead of time before the show really gets started. So that's definitely important. And looking at SPY for tomorrow, I was definitely looking at the 636 level as one of the major levels in the short term for support. Are there any other major levels you're looking at?
Yeah, that is a huge level right there. And there's actually a few levels on the SPY that I'll be watching for. I really like this next lower support down around 633.50. I feel like that was a great area where the SPY bounced at last Thursday and Wednesday. And I think that we could end up seeing a good test there if we do end up breaking like this 636 area. I did see that there's been a lot of bounces close to 635 as well. So I think that one's good to mention. I know it's a lot closer to the price action though, or the current price, I should say. I really also, Mike, as we zoom out here, the SPY has been pretty straight up, right? If we do get like a bigger pullback coming in, I think that we could actually come down to test like 630, maybe even 628. But of course, that's getting a little speculative, and we would need to see a pretty bad earnings week, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like the new all-time high right now is just under 640, so we do have a little bit to go in that sense. What was really nice last week is that we were at the all-time high, and we kept just like pushing past it, and we were so close where it was just a lot easier for the market to make a new all-time high basically every single day. Now the SPY has a little bit of work to do here, so let's definitely keep that 640 level close on watch as well. And another thing worth paying attention to, not only in like a ultra short-term sense, but also just to have in the back of your mind for these next few weeks, is that we are heading into a time of the year where the volatility index normally picks up quite a bit. So check this out. As we can see from this chart here, volatility tends to increase around this time of year. And for those of you who don't know, volatility going up normally is pretty bad for the stock market. Basically, on this chart, the red line represents the volatility index for this year, and the gray lines represent what the volatility index normally does. So basically, we could see this year when the market was just getting obliterated in April, volatility exploded higher. Right now, volatility is definitely suppressed, and basically when we look at what it normally does around this time of the year, we do see a decent-sized uptrend. So while this doesn't necessarily mean the stock market has to get destroyed tomorrow, it's worth knowing that we normally do see things heat up over these next few weeks and months. So again, we want to show everyone this ahead of time so you can be prepared for it.
Yeah, I feel like over the past few years, we've been looking at this data, and as we get like into these later months of the year, like August, September, October, we have seen a bit of a jump here, going over to the volatility index. Let's just go back to 2024 and look at it around this time. And Mike, I mean, it looks pretty good in August, right? So be ready, guys. I'm not saying it's going to go up to 64 or anything like that. And the really cool thing is that the stock market had a great 2024. So even though the volatility index can pop up in a crazy way like that, the overall market, if we go back to the SPY, had a great year that year. It just happened to be that in August there was just a slight pullback, and that could be exactly what we see happen right now, right? The market is very overextended. It could pull back a little bit, and then we just continue the uptrend. So I think it's great data to look at, and August is definitely a strange time of the year.
Yeah, that Japanese yen carry trade last August was pretty insane for all those who remember that. So, but while we're on the topic of volatility, this is actually a really good thing for traders, because when volatility increases, of course, you see bigger moves in both directions, but it also just rapidly explodes options premiums, because as implied volatility goes up, it directly makes options more expensive. And basically, if you own options, you benefit from that greatly. So basically, don't be scared of volatility. It's actually something that a lot of traders make a lot of money from. So that's good. But at the same time, Tom, while we have all of this going on, we do have some black swan style events, kind of. So there was some news today with Trump giving Russia less than 2 weeks to reach a peace deal with Ukraine. What is going on there?
Yeah, he used to have a 50-day deadline that he gave to Vladimir Putin. He's reducing that now only less than 2 weeks. I know that Trump has been increasingly, I would say, talking negatively about Vladimir Putin. He said here, like, I'm disappointed, of course. So I know that Trump really wanted to get a peace deal done. Now, this isn't something that I think is going to be super pressing for the market tomorrow, but we definitely like to keep you guys aware of situations like this unfolding, just in case something does hit and then end up moving stocks. And, talking about stocks moving, China and the U.S. are actually talking right now in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, there's a lot going on with China right now. They really want to extend the tariff truce by another 90 days. Hopefully they can end up getting that done. The talks are going to resume on Tuesday. Nonetheless, though, anytime the U.S. and China is talking, you got to be watching it. And China actually has an August 12th deadline to reach an agreement with Trump, of course. I know that everyone talks about the August 1st reciprocal deadline tariff. I don't want that to be confused necessarily with China's tariffs.
Exactly. So, yeah, we have a ton going on this week, so it definitely should make for some very exciting movement. But, Tom, we definitely have to give a little bit of an honorable mention to today's Palantir price action because there was a lot of news moving this one, too. And this one's right at all-time highs, and it had quite the drop today, but it did hold up very strongly. So, what's going on here?
Yeah, only ended up closing down 0.58%, but Palantir has some competition coming. It's not looking good either. The DoD is testing other AI models that would make it easy to switch from people like Palantir. And as I start to read through this a little bit more, I found this very interesting. Like major tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Salesforce, they've been developing AI tools to help people leave their current platforms and come to theirs, I suppose, right? Literally these AI capabilities are designed to write code that will help transfer the data and just make the overall situation of switching a lot easier. I know people get kind of locked in some ways where they really can't switch. So it's interesting to see the government doing this, and obviously it affects Palantir in a pretty bad way because they've been rising a ton, of course, based off a lot of the government contracts. And if the government's kind of exploring other options here, it's definitely going to hurt Palantir, especially because of all the hype that they need to sustain this rally.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to see how successful these new AI model tests end up being. But I guess in a trading sense, it doesn't really matter in the short term. Palantir's a stock that has been crushing it. They are very close to all-time highs, and like you said, they need more and more hype and euphoria and bullishness to sustain the current levels, let alone to continue uptrending. So basically, looking at Palantir in a short-term sense, regardless of whether these test AI models end up being successful over the long term, this negative news can shake things up a little bit. I will say Palantir did hold up very strongly, so the bear case isn't that strong. But if we do see more selling pressure come into Palantir in the short term, then maybe there will be a little bit of a pullback opportunity here. Tom, in the bull side and the bear side, what are some key levels you're seeing with this one?
I really like how they fell down today and ended up pulling back above $155. This is a pretty clear area of support on Palantir. Now, it did pull under it very quickly and then obviously recovered right back up, and that recovery happened right around 153. So I will be watching 155 and 153 to the downside. If we start to break below there, like the low of day from today, I think things could get a little bit more choppier for Palantir. But to the upside, like you said, it recovered up pretty well, actually got back to some pretty key resistance close to 158 around the end of the day. If we could break above that tomorrow, I'll be watching 159 and especially 160 overhead. I think 160 is going to be a pretty big psychological level here, especially given that they rejected back under there so hard earlier this morning.
Definitely. All right, sounds good there. I'll definitely keep that close on watch. And besides that, Tom, let's jump right into the fun stuff for today, which are some setups and predictions. And a stock that is close on my radar is BABA Alibaba. This is a high-risk, high-reward trade. As we know, we do have some news with China going on where, like Tom said, the U.S. and China are currently talking in Stockholm, Sweden right now. They're trying to extend this tariff deadline. And basically, Chinese stocks have been doing pretty well in the short term. Alibaba did very well in pre-market today. It didn't hold those gains that great as the day went on, but still decent move. We've seen a handful of Chinese big money plays lately. And of course, whenever you have tariff / trade war news, it definitely has the ability to move stocks in a very strong way. So this is partially what makes this a high risk, high reward trade where, we don't know if the U.S. and China are going to come to a deal. The consensus estimates are that they're going to extend this tariff truce. if they do, I think that there's a fair chance that we can see Alibaba break higher. It would be phenomenal to see it break through that 124 resistance. And if that does happen, I think there's a great risk reward riding this uptrend. And I think that there's opportunity to continue just the general trend of bullishness that we've seen with this stock, not only over the past few weeks, but even in a broader sense over the past few months. A year ago at this time, Alibaba was currently trading for around like $85 per share, or even closer to 80. So, right now it's at 122. It's been uptrending pretty strongly. Its highs are around like 150 in a short-term sense from, you could say, March. So it's definitely a play that's on my radar. Again, we need to see this news end up in a positive way, though, because if tensions continue to escalate with China, then this can, completely prevent any sort of breakout.
It definitely could. It's something that is definitely worrying in the short term. But whenever I look at Baba, if there is a deal made, or like let's just say that they do the tariff extension and then things are okay in the short term, there could possibly be a good breakout. So I like the setup quite a bit here for a possible run on Baba myself. With my first setup, I'm looking at Nvidia to the upside, of course. I love that move today above 175. We talked about this one yesterday on the Bookmap. There was like 1 million shares at 175, and you can see today it opened up and chopped around a lot, but once it actually started breaking above that high of this morning, we got some great end of day price action on Nvidia. Like, my gosh, that recovery was very strong. So I'm looking for another good move tomorrow out of Nvidia and for this overall trend to continue. Of course, they went up again today. The market ended up getting a lot more shaky, but nonetheless, Nvidia continues to show their strength. Looking at the Bookmap for the next couple days, 180 is a crucial overhead resistance. Not quite 1 million shares like there was at 175, but there was like 809,000 shares stacked up there around the middle point of the day today. So if we can see a good move above the high of day today, watch 180 as a possible target. But overall, I love the momentum with Nvidia, and it just continues to keep going, Mike.
Yeah, it is a powerhouse. So let's keep it close on watch. Another ticker that is definitely on the radar is Netflix, and it is to the downside. I know we hit on this one a handful of times over the past few weeks, and it has been downtrending nicely, which is great. And it's nice to see it finally pull back after its massive uptrend over the past few years. But it's definitely on my radar for a potential breakdown, especially past this $1,160 support area. The stock started selling off after a recent earnings report, and it is currently like basing off that $1,160 area. If we see a breakdown past that, I definitely like the risk reward playing it in a bearish sense.
Yeah, that's a huge support here. I'll definitely have it on the radar. Netflix has been very weak, especially since those earnings. So if they break that down, it could end up being a flush type of scenario. With my next setup, I'm looking at SMCI. I really like the way that SMCI was moving today, up 10.2%. If we go to the daily chart and we scroll out, we can see that they're still pretty far from their all-time highs. I'm not sure that they're going to get all the way back up to there or not, but there is a big resistance coming up in the short term, very close to $65 to $70. Now, this is going to be a bit of a resistance range, I'm going to call it. We can see that on multiple occasions, there's been a lot of touches close to this range. The most recent test got to around that $66 area. So if we can continue this breakout over the next couple trading days, I'm definitely going to be watching for it to get up to this resistance, if not even break it. But I love the momentum here with SMCI, and as we zoom in on the daily, there was a recent resistance broken right around $55, which was an amazing level to break above today. And I just hope that this trend can continue because it is showing a lot of strength. And as we can see, SMCI, whenever it starts to trend, it can trend really well over the course of a couple of weeks, let's say. So hopefully this momentum can pick up, kind of like the candles that I'm pointing to here.
Yeah, SMCI is known to move in a very asymmetric way when it has momentum. Like you pointed out, its move from February is a great example. And honestly, the further you zoom out on this one, the more that point gets proven. So definitely keep it close on watch. And besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Roku, ticker symbol ROKU, to the upside.
Roku had a very nice move today. If they can break above $94.50, right around their high of day, then watch for a continuation.
With the next one, we have Navitas, ticker symbol NVTS, to the downside.
Navitas, if they can break under their $8.25, watch them down. As we zoom out here in the short term, there is that $8.35 support, but I would like to see some confirmation there.
And then with the last one, we have Coinbase, ticker symbol COIN, to the downside.
Yeah, if Coinbase can break below 375, watch this one down as well. I thought it was pretty interesting how much they sold off today, down 3.11%. If we go check out Bitcoin really fast, it was down quite bad also.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a fair amount of profit taking here. So let's keep these plays on the radar for potential continuations tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, let's prioritize making smart, long-term oriented trading decisions. Keep those losses small, and definitely check out the Key Lessons channel in the StockedUp Discord to learn a lot of great information completely for free. So definitely check that out. And besides that, Tom, let's jump right into today's $348,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol WSM. So today, the trader bought the WSM 190 strike call options that expire very soon on August 15th of 2025. So this isn't the craziest, biggest big money trade ever, but its expiration is pretty soon. These are out of the money options, so the trader's expecting a move pretty soon here of decent magnitude as well. Looking at WSM, it has been uptrending pretty steadily, not only in a short-term sense, but I would also say in a medium-term sense. Ever since that bottom in April, the stock has been doing pretty well. We're getting closer to the key $200 resistance level, and I think this is more of a high-risk, high-reward setup. Given the short-term expiration, it could be very nice, especially if the stock continues to put pressure on these recent highs. And I think this setup, like all momentum-style swing setups, it'll be very important to cut without hesitation if the trend starts to reverse.
I love the overall uptrend here with WSM. This is an amazing chart, and we're seeing a lot of good charts in the short term. I really like how this stock is breaking above that 180 resistance, and something that was really cool in the short term is that it came back down and tested it before running up here today, showing some really strong, I would say, buyers coming in around that 180 mark. So if we pull back under 180, that might be where the trend does start to truly shift and turn around. This stock is pretty wild, and we're seeing a lot of good uptrends here. I could see this one getting up towards that $200 resistance in the short term. The last time that it was running up around this range, it got the $200 pretty quickly. So I would not be surprised if it got there within a couple of weeks. And like you said, this is a short-term trade, so they definitely need the move to happen quick. And I think it's interesting, definitely being a smaller big money trade, but honestly one of my favorites here because there's just so many stocks on these crazy bull runs, and if it just continues for a few days, this will pop off pretty well.
Yeah, should be nice. So we shall see. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely consider destroying that subscribe button so you can get our videos recommended to you more often. Every single day we cover big money trades just like this one, plus the most important news, information, earnings, events, SPY levels, important stocks, and basically everything you need to know about the stock market every single day. When you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often. And we have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Stay Ready, in the StockedUp Discord, who had some nice $10,000 gains today. So huge shout out to you, Stay Ready. Keep up the great work going forward. Not only nice dollar gains, but also some very nice percentage gains as well. So keep on rolling. We have a very exciting week ahead of us, guys. There should be a lot of good action, a lot of big moves. And as we covered from today's video, as the week goes on, it just gets crazier and crazier. If you have not tried out Bookmap yet, now's a great time to try it out. You can save quite a bit using the StockedUp link in the description in the comments down below. Like Tom showed with NVIDIA, you can see exactly where key buyers and sellers are stacked up. And especially if you haven't tried it before, it's definitely worth trying out at some point. And given how crazy this week will be, maybe it's a good time to start. Again, you can save quite a bit with the link down below. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.